Hi everyone, my name is Maya Luisa and welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy that you're here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about our cycles and how to honor our cycle. And let me tell you, I used to have the worst cycle. I used to be so sick. I used to throw up sometimes. I would be in so much pain. I wouldn't be able to go anywhere. I would literally look at my, like, when I was gonna get my cycle and have to cancel everything I had to do that first day because I would be not able to do anything except lay in my bed in fetal position. Let me know if you can relate, okay? My cycle was really bad, and so I went for many years like this. I would just take painkillers to try to numb the pain, and after a while I really wanted to get to the root cause of this pain and to heal myself. So I began to do a lot of research and I began to drink red raspberry tea, which didn't really help, but I was drinking the tea. What started to make the change was, first it was belly dancing. And the belly dancing helped to bring lots of awareness to this beautiful world underneath my navel, and helped me to understand my pelvic bowl, and helped me to, honor my womb, and helped me to honor this space, because I didn't really have like a great honoring of it before, because I was trained in ballet, and in ballet it's like bad to have hips. So I've talked about this in my other video, but it was through Afro-Cuban dance and through belly dance that I began to really honor my body and began to honor my curves and my big wide hips, just loving my body as it is. And so it was through belly dance that I began to just have this awareness of that space. As the years went by, I still had painful cycles, but it was like less pain. It was less nausea with the belly dancing, but still discomfort, still lots of pain. And then I started going to acupuncture, and my acupuncturist, who I love dearly, she is my honorary cousin, love her so much. I started working with her, and she started to work with my liver meridian. The liver is an organ that filters the blood, it cleanses the blood. And so anytime you have a stagnation in the liver, which deals with like anger and stuff like that, if you have stagnation in the liver, then that can lead to painful cycles. So she began to work with my liver meridian, and that started to really subside my pain in my cycle, but still was like a tenderness, and still was a time that I can honestly say I was not honoring. And then fast forward to like the birth of my son and the birth of my second son, I've gone even deeper into the womb and into understanding cycles, and understanding that as women is such an honor to be a bleeding Shakti woman on this earth. Like, there's nothing that's more powerful than that, because we literally are living embodiment of nature, of the cycles of nature. We have a cyclical nature that exists within our body that reflects the cyclical nature of the world. And so when we tap into our own natural cycles, we tap into our natural power, we tap into the power of nature, we tap into the power within ourselves. So it's deep. And I can't wait to share this with you, because once I got this knowledge, it changed everything for me. So I want to talk about our ancestors. I always talk about our ancestors, and our ancestors, the women that came before us, when they would be on their cycle, when they would be bleeding, they would be taken from their homes, not be taken, they would leave on their own accord, trust me, and they would go into these tents, and they would go into these houses, and they would go into these bleeding places, these places where all of the women would bleed together. And in this time, they would sing, they would cry, they would heal, they would be given food so they didn't have to cook. They would tell stories, they would be given advice. They would not have to deal with the everyday chores and domestic work. They had this time to rest. But in that resting, many times the place where they would be all together during their cycle would be facing out away from the village. And you think about why. Because if they're, first of all, if they're facing the village, they're looking at their kids, they're looking at their to-do list, they're looking at all of their mundane life. But when they're in this time, when you have your cycle, your psyche is open, and you actually get the world of the physical world and the spiritual world. The veil is very, very, very thin at this bleeding time. So they're actually getting downloads for how to lead their village or their culture or their town or their neighborhood. They're getting the spiritual downloads of how to move forward. So that's why all of the windows of the bleeding lodges did not face the town where they lived. It faced out onward, the future. Where are we going? It took them away so that they were then given the spiritual downloads and the spiritual guidance of where to go forward and what messages to get to implement so that everyone benefited from this time, because they were given the space to rest. And so us being cyclical beings, I live in New York City, so this is what you're going to get. Us being cyclical beings during this bleeding time is when we get the most spiritual awareness and the downloads of how to move forward. So I want you to remember that, because that's and this is for across many, many cultures throughout Africa, throughout the Middle East, everywhere. Women would leave their house during this sacred time and they would go be with the other women. It's very, very common. And so let's talk about the cycles. So we go through the entire 4 seasons within one cycle. Between one period to the next, we go through all 4 seasons. So I want you to think about spring. How do you feel in the springtime? You feel light, you feel airy, you feel carefree. So the springtime is the elements of air, and this is your follicular phase. This is when you're feeling light. This is when you're feeling carefree. And this is the follicular phase of your cycle that coincides with the spring elements, the elements of air, the spring season. Spring comes into summer. So follicular phase into summer, and summer represents ovulation. Ovulation time is when you have a spike in your testosterone, and that's when you're feeling super sexy. That's when you actually, your voice changes and there's a tone in your voice that like triggers something on a very primal level to other people, so that they know that you're actually fertile during this time. This is when you are hot and ready to go. So this represents fire, the fire elements, when you're just like wild and you just want to make love and you're very, very juicy and just open and ready and hot. So that is ovulation. Ovulation is your summertime. So that's when you're just most alive, and you just have lots of energy, and you're glowing, and your pheromones are emitting like this beautiful perfume of that's like sticky and sweet, and people are picking up on it, and they're being slightly aroused by your presence, and you're just glowing. You already know. So that represents your summer. What comes after summer? So summer, ovulation. What comes after ovulation is your luteal phase. And the luteal phase is fall. And fall is, think about when the leaves start to turn. Fall represents the earth element. Fall represents discernment. So think about like how you feel before you bleed. You feel more judgy. You feel more earthy, discernment. So you're not going to be out wild and more carefree like the summertime. You're going to be more inside, more internal, more discerning. You can think about like a mother, you know, before you have a child, you might be more wild and more free and more open. And then when you have a baby, you're more concerned about their energy and more perceptive to the energy that's around your baby, and more protective of your energy. And that's the same for when you're before you get your cycle, during your PMS stage. It's like you don't want to be around everybody. You're more sensitive. You're more just want to be within, and you're just feeling more. You're more critical. So all of those things, that's your fall. That's your luteal phase. And that's when you just start to come within. And that's when you start to just be more internal. And then from your fall comes to your winter. And winter represents the first day. And winter represents the time that you bleed. And that is your winter. And think about how you are on a winter day. You're colder, so you have to wear more clothes. And you have lots of wisdom. And you're just wanting to drink tea, and you're wanting to journal because you're getting like lots of downloads. And in our society, you know, they teach us that, you know, oh, it's just PMS. But no, it's actually that you're getting messages for how to move. You're getting messages on people's energy that's funky, that you're not able to really pick up on other times during your cycle, but you can pick up on it during this time, because that veil between the spirit world and your physical world is so thin during this time. So your body needs to be warmed. You need to be drinking soups. You need to be wearing more clothes. And if you can, on the first day of your bleed, don't work. If you can, see if you can stay home, because this is the day that you're going to get the most downloads. You're going to get the most spiritual messages for what to birth in your life, for what to give birth to, what to pay attention to. All of those feelings, like, you know, you might have what you call hunches, or you might have like your intuition's telling you something. During this time that you're bleeding is when you're writing all of that stuff down and honoring that wisdom. And that's how you honor your cycle. It's like that day, I want you to think of it as if you're going to be spending that day with the wisest ancestor in your spiritual court. Literally, what would you do? You would put on some clothes. You would light a candle, you would pour them some tea, and you would sit and you would listen to the wisdom that they tell you. And that's what I want you to do on the day that you're bleeding, and during that time, is to honor that time. Don't try to push through. Don't try to medicate. Work in your schedule in a way, if you can, where you're honoring that time, where you're listening to the messages, where you're resting. Oh, so important. You must rest during that time, because the more that you rest on your cycle is the more energy you're going to have for the rest of the month. So your cycle is literally giving you the spiritual messages on what to birth and what your mission is and how to birth that mission. All of this wisdom is coming at that time, but we are not in a culture that honors that. And so we just push through. We're not receiving the messages that we need. We're not receiving the wisdom that we need, the wisdom that is ours, and how to move and how to navigate life. And so when we take that time, when we honor our cycle, and we're honoring these messages, and then we're able to go forth in the world with way more wisdom and not having to go through what we've been going through. So I hope this resonates with you. I hope that you learn to honor your cycles. If you have painful cycles, belly dancing, highly recommend belly dancing, doing your acupuncture, resting during your cycles, really honoring what is coming up. What is the wisdom that my womb is telling me? Where is this pain coming from? Because sometimes we have a culture that is just so not able to really sit with this uncomfortability. We tend to just numb it or become really distracted. But when this pain arises, it's a message, because our psyche is open. So there might be something that our womb is holding on to that it needs to release, that it's calling you like, please heal, do something, release this that's from within, so that you don't have to experience this pain. And so honor your cycles. So you have it. Winter, spring, summer, and fall. Okay, I hope you like this video. Honor your cycles, and I will see you in the next video. Peace and love.